49ers Ultimate Report. This is John J., your 49ers reporter, opinionist, analyst, and die-hard fan. Before we start off this great special episode that we're having on the 49ers Ultimate Report, I want to give a quick shout out to all of my great subscribers, those who have been supporting this channel, even if you were there day one when you discovered this channel was there. So I really appreciate you guys with the great support, continuing to follow me, listening to my opinions, my thoughts on the of the 49ers. So thank you very much. And even if you just subscribed maybe yesterday, you mean so much to me. So thank you very much for the great support. Welcome everybody to the 49ers Ultimate Report. I am John J., and I am very excited to have another guest on. Last night I had the wonderful ladies of touchdowns and tight end, Ashley and Nicole. One of them is a Chargers fan. The other one is a 49er fan. So if you've missed that live stream, you can just go back to my previous video on my channel and you can watch the full 60-minute interview. It was a wonderful interview. But now we have another interview, back-to-back days of interviews. So you guys have seen the thumbnail. You guys are wondering who this guy is. For those who don't know who this guy is, I saw this guy on my main man, Ryan Sakamoto, the Beast Rider. He has some really wonderful guests. And as I mentioned, I had Jerry Yang, his boy. I've had Mike Schumann, another guy who's his boy. And now I got a third member from the Beast Rider family to hop on this show. Before he comes on, let me give you a quick background of who he is. This guy played in college with the University of Miami. After that, he basically became a scout, and now currently he is now the scout of the Buffalo Bills. So let's bring him in right here. He is AJ Highsmith. How's it going, man?
It's good, man. How you guys doing? I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah. I'm so happy. You're hopping on. Hanging out with me. A very small YouTuber, but it's always wonderful to get all these guests in. As I mentioned yesterday, I had touchdowns at tight end. Of course, I had Mike Schumann. So it's a wonderful community. What I'm building, and for you to be on it, I think it's a huge honor because you've played the game of football and now you're a scout, so you know the X's and O's and things to look for. So it's a wonderful to hop on this channel. So I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you as well.
Yeah. So right now I want you to introduce yourself to the fans, to tell them who you are, and let them know what you do.
Okay, I'm AJ Highsmith. I'm currently a scout for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm a college scout, and what we do is, honestly, in short, we evaluate the college players for the NFL draft every year. And I got my start. I started scouting very shortly after my football career was over. I went to the University of Miami. I played there, and when I finished up, I tried out in the NFL. Never had an opportunity to play through an NFL season. But I had a couple tryouts with the Tennessee Titans and ironically the San Francisco 49ers. And, as soon as that career came to an end for me, I kind of transitioned into scouting very quickly. It was about probably 2 months after I had those initial tryouts, and I got my first job in scouting with the 49ers. And so I started there. I was able to be there for 5 years, and it was a really good experience for me. And after my 5 years there, I transitioned to a new chapter and started scouting with the Buffalo Bills. So I've been fortunate to be, a couple different places already early in my career, starting in San Francisco, obviously kind of going through that entire cycle there. And just my luck, I left the year before they had the Super Bowl run, but I definitely had some good memories there with those guys. Met a lot of really good people, worked under a lot of really good people. And now I've been able to, go to the Buffalo Bills, and we've been able to have success. So it's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Letting me and the fans know what you do. I want to take a quick moment to let you know, AJ, that this kid is, I think, 13 years old. His name is Amin the Dream. You should check out his YouTube channel.
Okay.
He's a very smart kid, and maybe he'll try to get you on his show. You'll
Oh
have a
yeah.
fun time with this kid. Yeah, for a 13-year-old, I think he's way more smarter than me. So I want to always to give him a quick shout out for what he does.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely do that. I enjoy watching you guys shows. I love sports. So anytime I can come on and talk ball with people, it's always fun for me.
All right, so now let's talk about right here. Let's get to know who you are. Of course, you have a football background. Also, I found out from the Beast Rider that your father also played football. He's also a scout. So let's talk about your early days. Also you could talk about your dad. When he was playing. Let's talk about your early days. Let's talk about your Miami career. Of course, as you mentioned, you didn't play a lengthy pro career, but you could tell us stories. When you were on training camp, squads. So let's start off with your early days. Where you're from. How did you get into football?
So I mean, I'm from a football family. I was born in Houston, Texas, and that's where I grew up. I spent majority of my life there, and I played quarterback in high school, and I was always football was always kind of the center of my life. And I knew, and that was how that was my way of that was what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I wanted to play in the NFL, and that was a goal for me. And then once I got to the end of that, and that wasn't an option for me anymore. I knew I still wanted to stay around the game. So I played football in high school. I was on a really good high school team in Houston, Texas, and we were able to, we went to the state championship my senior year of high school. Then I transitioned into college, and a dream of mine because my dad played there, I think, and that was kind of who introduced me to the University of Miami. And I think all the kids around my age, if you were growing up kind of in the early 2000s, the University of Miami was they were like what Alabama is today. I think they were the most, arguably the greatest college football team ever. Definitely one of the more dominant programs, in that time. And that was just somewhere I really wanted to be and somewhere I wanted to play at the highest level. And I thought that's what, that was a goal of mine. So I was, lucky enough to have the opportunity to play there. And I played two different positions in college. So that was also, I think, kind of molded my experience in football. I went in as a quarterback, played that for 2 years, and I switched over and played defensive back for 3 years once we went through a coaching transition. So I've been fortunate to see a lot of different, learn the game of football from a lot of different lenses. And I think that, like I said, I come from a football family. So football was taught to me at a really young age. My dad he also played at University of Miami. He was actually one of, I would say, the original kind of bad boys of the 80s when they took that program to the top. He was in the middle of, he was really right in the middle of all that. If you've seen the 30 for 30 documentary, he was a big part of what they did in the 80s and kind of put that program on the map. And his dad also played football and coached football. So when I tell people, like some kids are, some people's families, they grew up and everyone's a doctor, everyone's a lawyer. I think in my house, football was the thing that we did. I learned just learning the game, learning it, whether it was playing the video game, playing the game outside, playing organized football. I think when I look back at my childhood, that's kind of all that, that's kind of all I've been exposed to. And that's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. So I think that's where it started for me. Like I said, I played, I was able to make it to training camp and I had a tryout with the 49ers. And that's when it was Jim Harbaugh's last year there. So that was cool, just seeing some of those guys, and they were coming off of 3 NFC championship title games in a row. And so, it was a very prestigious organization. So just being able to, be there and, see some of those coaches, see some of those guys in the same hallway as you was really a good experience for me.
Let's slow down for a little bit. Damian Lee, this guy, he knows his football. He knows his facts. He's asking, did your father play football for the Cowboys for a year with Emmitt Smith?
Yeah, he did. That was he played fullback for Emmitt Smith. I think it would have been maybe 1990, I guess, right at the beginning of Emmitt Smith's career. But yeah, he played for the Oilers, the Cowboys, and then he finished with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's still a really good resume. Like I tell people, like if you make it to the NFL, you're like a special teams guy. A guy who gets some plays in the offense or defensive snaps. It's still a huge accomplishment. Of course, you're not making the big money as the star players are. So shout out to your dad. Making it because of course I think a lot of people on the chat and myself, we wish that we could at least been on that field, playing one game, professionally That's all. That's what we dream about. So Damian Lee always has some really great facts. All right. So let's move on to you know your time with the 49ers. As you mentioned, I want to know some stories. Some things that you enjoyed being with the 49ers. Also players that you were scouting for us. So let's let's listen to some great stories or some times that you really appreciate being being part of the 49ers organization.
Yeah, I think so. I started at the 49ers in 2014. And I guess my experience was very different. I think, well, I wouldn't say different, but I think that, kind of the thing that I took pride in, and I think the experiences that I look back at with a lot of my friends, I still have a lot of good friends that still work there. And that was, a really important time in my life because I was kind of the first professional opportunity I had in the NFL. And so you meet a lot of people, you bond with a lot of different people. And honestly, when I was at the 49ers, we were never really very good. And so we kind of look back, and it's crazy to see, like the year after I left was the Super Bowl year when they ended up going and losing to Kansas City. But prior to that, I think the 4 or 5 years I was there, we were 8-8 one year, we were 5-11, we were 2-14, 3-13. And I think that, when you look back, you just really get to see, kind of going through those dark days and how you have to build it in order to get to the other side. And, I wasn't able to finish it out and be there for that successful season. But, when I look back, it was, it's really, those moments mean a lot when you can say like, hey, you remember when we were, you're going through those seasons and you're 1-10 or you're 0-5 and, it's hard. It's almost like, it's like when you're playing football and you grind with your, with your teammates and, in the front office the same way. Like it was really hard for us some of those days and in those times. But it was good to see, kind of the groundwork that we laid in the foundation end up, coming out on the other side of it and being a really successful team. So I think those are some of the things I remember. It was really cool for me because I've been such a football fan my whole life. I remember the first time I got there, it's my first year. I'm basically a full-time intern at the time, and you're helping with some administrative things, and you help with some football operations things. So you're around the team a lot. And I remember just meeting Patrick Willis for the first time, and I was just like, oh man, this is a real dude. And so I mean, that was kind of one of the people that I really felt like, wow, this is like really cool to be in the NFL. And you see guys like Frank Gore, who is going to be first ballot Hall of Famer, and you see Anquan Bolden, Colin Kaepernick was there, and so I mean, you were just able to be around a lot of really influential people. So that was always really cool and something I really enjoyed about being in the NFL and being at the 49ers in particular.
So Amin the Dream, I think, wants to know was he able to get an Emmitt Smith jersey game worn?
Can he get a jersey?
No. I think he's asking if your dad ever got a Emmitt Smith game worn jersey.
Oh, I'm sure he could if he wanted one. He's honestly he doesn't have much memorabilia as far as jerseys from guys, like especially guys he played with. I think he looks at those guys like friends, and I think he appreciates the time they spent together. But he doesn't have a ton of. I think the only jerseys he has that I've seen. I think he has a Bart Starr and a Brett Favre jersey because those are like legends for him. But those are really the only ones I've seen.
Yeah, I don't know how common it was, with these jersey swaps, because I know, in the recent years, more teams are like switching jerseys, but I'm not sure
Right.
if it was like big back.
Yeah, I don't think they swapped jerseys in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very different time. I'm not sure where that idea came from, but I was watching this thing on NFL, something about NFL Network, and there were players who in the mid to late 2000s they started collecting jerseys of like the best players, and a lot of them like rushed to like the best players to get the jersey. So I'm not sure where that idea happened, but
I don't know when that became a thing. Honestly, even when I was in college, nobody was really doing it. So I guess in the last 10 years or so, I think it's really become a big deal.
Yeah. All right. So I actually want to know something interesting. When you were here with the 49ers, of course, as you mentioned, you were a full-time intern. So you weren't doing like a lot of the major stuff. But what do like the smaller scout people, like those who are at the bottom, what are mostly their duties? So what were the duties? Were you just like administrator, just like a paper, things like that,
Yeah. So
organizing?
yeah. So for me, early on, when I was, so I guess the technical term, I guess, is scouting assistant. And so I did that for 2 years, and it's the same thing on the coaching side. They have quality control coaches, or in college they're called graduate assistants, and so in the NFL they're called scouting assistants. And so what you do is, it's honestly a split. So I would say, just for numbers' sake, I would say it's 60% administrative work, and then 40% of it is still scouting. So they give you players to scout, but you're not scouting, the top tier players at Alabama and Texas and LSU and University and, Stanford. The guys I was responsible for scouting were smaller school prospects from the FCS level all the way down to Division III. And if they have an NFL prospect at those schools, it's usually not somewhere where scouts have to go. But if they were, some guys were only a practice squad level player. A couple guys get drafted, but there wasn't a ton of, there were no first round picks. There are really no second round picks. I think the highest that I saw a guy get drafted from a school there was maybe the third round in my years doing it. And so it's a different level. It's, I would say, like a lower level, like a lower tier of scouting, but it's still, they teach you the scouting process. And then the administrative work is because we were assistants to the other scouts on the staff and to the, the executives in the front office and like the GM and those guys. And so everything from, printing out combine books and scouting books and different things that we need, and setting up film and organizing cut-ups and different things like that in the draft room. So that was a lot of my responsibility, and we had to manage. We have like in the NFL, everybody had, at that time, there's a board and it has, every team's depth chart. And so we had to make sure that those depth charts were reflective of the team's current roster every day. So you go through and you manage when guys get cut from different teams and different stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of administrative work, and there was some scouting work as well. So it was kind of a back and forth. You got to do a lot of different things. It was definitely a grind, definitely a lot of work, and definitely a lot of tedious things. And, I told people I think that part of it builds character for sure. And so, and obviously it pays off now, because when you do get to scout, I think it teaches you the right way to do it.
Yeah, I remember when they did on the NFL Network, Bill Belichick, when he was like a little like small level assistant for a team, and his tasks were like washing the jerseys and taking care of the uniforms, things like that. And at the time, they would have to share with like Nick Saban, one of the guys who's dominating college football right now. And they remember like those tough days, where you're at the bottom, that's your task. And just like as you mentioned, like you may not be scouting the Alabamas, the school that you went to, mostly like the Trey Lance's schools, like those schools, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter, what your tasks are. Every task is very important. I would know, because as I mentioned to you as we started the show, I'm a coach myself, and I also have to recruit kids from the local community and things like that. So it's really really difficult. So I give props to you and all the other scouts, at your level, just grinding, every single day, trying to make sure your current team, the Bills, get some more players around Josh Allen and that Bills team. So
yeah, I mean, we gotta find some more guys and get over that last hump.
Yeah. So speaking of right now, as I mentioned, you have a wonderful hat. Currently, you are now with the Buffalo Bills. So what is your current position? Are you still like the same when you were here with the 49ers, or do you have like a higher position now?
No, so it's similar, but it's on a different. So when I was with the 49ers, the last job I had for the last 3 years was I was scouting on the pro personnel side. And so on that side of it, we evaluated other pro NFL players currently in the NFL. And so it's really all the guys you see, all the free agent signings, all the transitions that happen once players are in the NFL. Those are kind of the things I was more responsible for. Whereas now with the Buffalo Bills, I'm a college scout. And so we're responsible for similar to recruiting, but again, in the NFL is scouting, because you don't have to recruit players. We just draft them. And we go visit the different colleges around the country. I have the Southwest region. So it's, all the southern states from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, that way. And I have all those schools. And so we evaluate, all their prospects that are, potentially going to be NFL players one day, from, his first round picks all the way down to free agents and, training camp practice squad players.
Yeah. So basically, as beach writer, when he had you on, you're like a area, like you're in your area
Right.
scouting the players. So yeah, because one thing that I'm starting to learn, every single day, year after year, is that teams have scouts, not just in their local region, but they also have them spread out. Because the Buffalo Bills, they play up in the state of New York, and they have you in the South, area of the United States, and you are looking for talent out there. So yeah, commends to you, man. Like you probably do a lot of traveling. A
Oh
lot of,
yeah, definitely a lot of traveling. It makes it easier if you live kind of in your region, so you don't have to fly as much. So a lot of places I go, I drive, which some people don't like driving, but I don't mind the drive, so it's not bad for me.
yeah. So again, shout out to you. So of course, how long have you been with the Bills?
So this is my third year with the Bills. So I was in San Francisco 5 years, and in Buffalo now I'm going. I just started my third year, so this is my 8th season total.
Okay. So so I have to ask you this question because I think every scout general manager had the same issue. Probably you guys and your general manager had the same issue. So of course in 2020 there was no combine, there was no pro days, so there was not a lot of scouting. So in 2020, like for your experience, was it still the same? Were you still able to go to places, or like how was the feel? What was it a little bit different, or was
Uh,
it as usual?
yeah, it was very different, and I was actually lucky because I'm in the states, honestly, where they were, I guess, a lot looser, and they didn't have as many COVID restrictions like in Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi, as opposed to like kind of California was really strict, on the, what they were allowing fans and the way they were allowing the game to be played. And so I think for me, the one thing that was a relief was that even though they didn't have a ton of fans in the stadium, they were still playing throughout the whole year. But it was definitely different. It was a lot more film and a lot more, virtual work as opposed to going into schools. Like now this year, we've been able to kind of get back on the road. So we go see players at practice, we go into the schools. And so last year there was none of that. We had to do everything from home. So it was definitely a lot different for the scouts.
Yeah. 2020 was not just for football, but all the other sports. It was different, and I'm very grateful to see how besides football, like how our world's going back to normal. As you mentioned, football. We're gonna start seeing more college conferences. Be able to play. So there'll be more time for you guys to be able to see all those great schools.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to go back to normal this year. I think it feels a lot more normal just, watching the game, seeing the way the routine is going back to normal. And so I think I'm definitely looking forward to, this getting on this new year and hopefully getting back to some normalcy.
Yeah. All right, so you are a scout. You are a scout, so I have some questions to ask you. So of course, the biggest draft pick, the 49ers in 2021 was our quarterback, Trey Lance, but we also drafted some other guys like Aaron Banks. We also drafted Ambry Thomas from Michigan. We got Trey Sermon from Ohio State, Talanoa Ufunga, Diamador Lenore, Elijah Mitchell. So when you look at the players that the 49ers brought in, besides Trey Lance, is there a player that the 49ers got that you're like, wow, maybe Buffalo could have had that player, So I just wanted to know any of the players that you think was Buffalo interested in any of our players?
Interesting. Yeah, I think. We had a chance to talk about a lot of those guys. I think that Aaron Banks was in the conversation for us because with our pick, I guess we were picking at, pick 30. So in the second round, it would have been 60. And so he was a guy that I think in the second round we would have had to have conversations about, just kind of always continuing to build the depth on the offensive line. My two favorite guys personally that you guys took, it was Hufanga and then Elijah Mitchell. And I think just because of, how they're going to fit in that scheme, I think especially like a guy like Elijah Mitchell with his speed, I think Kyle has shown, how he can use running backs with that skill set and that one cut offense and the zone scheme they run. So I think he has a chance to be really good. And then Even I think Fanga showed up a lot in the preseason game. He made a ton of tackles. He was playing really well on special teams. I think those are the things you want to see from rookies, especially guys who are drafted late. And he was a guy I was a big fan of. I've seen him, for 2 years because he thought about coming out of school the year before, and then he went back. So I think he's a really good player. I just love the way he plays the game. So he was definitely a favorite for me.
All right, so Damian Lee, has great some questions. I wanted to read this. Trusted Jimmy G. Remember, he spent time around Brady and Belichick. Tom Brady got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo for a season. So of course, the conversation here, is Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. I just wanted just a little quick answer because I think everyone's sick and tired. Any nice things to say about Jimmy Garoppolo, because here in the Bay Area there's nothing nice about Jimmy Garoppolo that people want to hear.
I think Jimmy gets the short end of that deal because he's had injuries that have prohibited him from playing sometimes, or kind of hindered his they've hindered the team in the sense of when he doesn't play, the record is clearly a lot different than when he does. But I was one, even as big of a fan as I am of Trey Lance, I feel like they have the luxury of being able to play Jimmy as long as they can, because the truth is Jimmy wins when he plays. He's got a really good record as a starter. He got them to the Super Bowl, and they were in that game until the very end. Now, there were plays, in that game where you wish he made a couple different throws. But, if you're talking about a guy who's good enough to get you, in a Super Bowl and give you a chance to win it, I don't know how you just want to throw away a guy like that for a rookie, even if he is a great rookie. I think it's shown that, if Pat Mahomes is good enough to sit for a year, then I think anybody can, benefit from sitting and playing behind a real veteran. So I don't think that, they should just, want to ship Jimmy off just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, here in the Bay Area, people continue to, they don't want to hear anyone saying anything nice about Jimmy Garoppolo. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, you're a scout, so you see it very differently than most fans, because they have a lot of arguments. Mm-hmm. Jimmy may be that practical car that's very boring and mellow, but it gets you from point A to point B. But you just bought a new luxury, cool car, and you just want to take it out for a spin. But your practical car is still brand new,
right.
Continue to use it. So for me personally, I finished with that, conversation. Whoever starts earns the job. That's just how I see it, because no one is ever pleased with the answer. So
right.
Basically,
I think early on, like most rookies, I think that Trey Lance, he has a huge upside, and you're going to see this. His very first pass was a wild play, and I think that, when you look at, obviously you see the upside, and you want to drive that new car because it's a sexy car, and you think it has a lot of tools. But the truth is that the NFL is hard for quarterbacks, especially rookies. And what you don't want to do is have a guy go in too soon and lose confidence, or get hurt, or get beat up. And so I think if you have the luxury of playing a guy and letting him sit and learn, I just think that difference when you're, these guys you're talking about 20, 21-year-olds, they grow a lot from 21 to 25 and 22 to 23. So I think if, whether it is only 6 weeks or 1 year or 2 years, I think he can always benefit from, just being patient. And when that time comes, then let him go full speed and, take over when when it's time.
Yeah, so basically, let's finish off the draft segment of the 49ers. So as you mentioned, Talanoa Hufanga, I'm in the West Coast. I'm able to see, Cal, Stanford, USC, the Pac-12. And I was able to see Talanoa Hufanga 4 times, when we played, here in the Bay Area twice and down there at USC twice. Mm-hmm. And I really liked them. But one thing that I have a question, because, I was a little bit, concerned why Talanoa Hufanga fell to us at the 5th round. Did your scouting departments have a red flag on him?
He had a couple different things. I think that, he plays a position that's kind of the NFL is playing with less of a true strong safety. And I think that was kind of the position he played. And I think that when you look at kind of his durability profile, his medical history, he had some nagging injuries that he played through in college. And then the truth is now is that, a lot of guys get dinged in our game because they don't run a fast 40. They don't test the way that, they don't blow it out at the combine or at pro day. I think a lot of guys get punished for that. So I think it was a lot of different little things that made him, I guess you would say, fall a little bit in the draft. But I think he ended up in the right spot. I think he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, like I said, I watched him. When he was healthy and he played against Cal. All right, so our guest is a little occupied at the moment, but anyway. But as I'm saying to you, the viewers right here, like I liked Talanoa Ufunga. He was a really really great player, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just a little bit biased, but you just heard, what our scout guy says. Every player has some certain red flags, so that makes a lot of sense. But I'm very glad that he's with us, and I think he could be like a George Kittle, a Drake Greenlaw, someone in that fifth round that somehow always blows up. So I kind of really like that.
Yeah, no, that was a great pick. I think he'll be, and I think he showed some of what he can be the other night in the preseason game. So hopefully, he keeps it up.
All right, so now we're going to go to the segment. Everyone now is going to be chiming in and saying their opinions. But, of course, the 49ers played against the Kansas City Chiefs. 49ers, we lost. It's preseason, doesn't really matter. As you mentioned, Talanoa Funga, really showed some really good stuff. So Trey Lance played, basically after Jimmy's one series, he played the first quarter, second quarter, and a little bit of the third quarter. He finished with 5 pass completions, I think 14 pass attempts. Not really good completion numbers. Of course, he threw that deep ball to Trent Sherfield. So when you were watching, I don't know if you saw that game or you saw any of his highlights of the preseason game. Did you have any thoughts, reactions about Trey Lance's first, preseason start?
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, I think he showed exactly where he is and what he can be. I think that you look at obviously the first pass that he threw, and it's a huge touchdown. It was a great pass, and you see the arm talent he has and the way that he can drive the ball down the field. And then I think that I think some of the things you saw in his game were just things that he needs to improve on, just being an efficient player at the position. And that's where I say like he can learn from a guy like Jimmy because that's what Jimmy's good at. I think Jimmy is a very efficient player. He's an efficient passer. He completes passes at a high level. He may never have a ton of 60, 70-yard bombs, but he doesn't take a ton of sacks. He moves the offense really well, and he kind of keeps the offense going in rhythm. And I think that's where Trish struggled some as the game progressed. I think that he just got out of rhythm sometimes. And his biggest thing is I know he's a competitor and he's going to want to make the big plays. And so I think when you're young, some of the things those guys have to learn is not always trying to go for that home run, every single pass. And so I think he's going to improve that a lot. I think all these guys, when you look at the quarterbacks in the NFL, the young guys that have been successful, they all get better at that. And so I think he's going to get better with time on task. And, I think he showed what he can be and why, he showed why everyone is excited about him.
So David brought up something that I want to talk about. He talks about the bomb looked good, talking about Trey Lance, but he also had 4 sacks. So I don't know if you saw the sacks that Trey Lance, he did have 4. Many of the local media is saying those sacks happened because the offensive line he was playing with was very very horrible.
Yeah.
In your opinion, do you agree with that statement that the reason why he looked so bad was the receivers were dropping the ball and he was playing with a bad O line?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with sacks, no matter if it's a preseason game and you're going with the backups or it's the first team you're going with the starters, I think sacks are always a proponent of multiple things. It can be, I mean, there's so many different variables. You never really know what the reason is. So I'm sure one of those sacks was Trey's fault. I'm sure one was the O line. I'm sure one was the receiver's fault, and one was probably a bad play call. There's just so many different things that can happen. But I think that to blame it all on one thing or one person is, a little, it's just a little judgmental. But I think that, there's definitely ways he can improve that. And I think as he grows, that's some of the things he's going to get better at. Because those are, there's just times where he may hold the ball to either make a play or, trying to scramble where he can just get rid of it. So I think there's obviously room for improvement, but it's, it's the first game, and I'm sure he'll get better at that, during this preseason.
So I have a question to ask you. Should fans, take a lot from preseason games, or mostly preseason games, or just for the reps? Should fans really take a huge stock on preseason games?
I think you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You got to look at, it depends on what lens you look at. I think when you look at the score or you look at someone's stats, it can be misleading because you don't know how they really got those stats. But I think when you look at, how a player is moving around or how a guy looks and how they respond to competition, I think those are things you can always take away from it because those things carry over to regular season games, and you can evaluate that on a bigger lens as well.
Yeah. Like one thing here in the like basically this past year there have been a lot of podcasters and media personnel who have been reporting daily stuff every single day, and there's a lot of news that are not even worthy. There's some things that are important, so a lot of fans like are saying, oh, I'm gonna watch the preseason game for the first time, it's gonna be so fun, etc., because they think many of these fans who are finally following the 49ers for the probably first time, I think the preseason games are just like the regular season games. So I think we do have to slow down and just evaluate what the players do. And for me to be completely honest, in my opinion, Trey Lance, the way he moved in the pocket, I really loved. That was a good A+ for him to show why you do need a quarterback who's able to extend plays with his leg. Of course, throwing the deep ball needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I got a lot of heat a few days ago for just saying that, but that was not a perfect spiral, but it did land, perfect, and it was taken in. And a lot of the incompletions were not drops. I think there were like 3, maybe 4 drops, but Trey Lance was not on the money. So that's my opinion of Trey Lance.
Yeah, I think it's funny because the person I text some of my buddies there, I think he has a lot of similarities to what Josh Allen was like as a rookie. And I think everyone knows that Josh struggled with accuracy coming out of college and as a rookie, and he's been able to grow and improve that. We have really good coaching staff, and he's a really hard worker. And so I think Trey has a lot of those similarities with the support that he's going to be able to get from Kyle and from that offense and the staff, and also just his work ethic overall. I think is going to help him improve a ton. So I think he did show a lot. I think it's good to see the flashes and the upside. You can see what type of athlete he is. You can see the way he threw the ball. And I think those are the things you get excited about. And I think the things that are the areas where he fell short in the first preseason game, I think you take it with a grain of salt and you assume that, those things are going to get better over time. So I think he's in a good place.
So the final question before we go to the final segment, Kyle Shanahan, there are a lot of opinions about him, but in your mind, did you think Kyle Shanahan, because there's been some rumors and some speculation that Kyle Shanahan cannot develop quarterbacks. Do you think that's like BS? It's just like media, just talking?
Yeah, I think that's I'm a huge fan of Kyle. I think I got to know him working there with him and, being in a lot of meetings with him and seeing the way that he operates. And, I think he is, I think people throw the word around too loosely, but I would consider him a genius when it comes to, coaching football, and especially on the offensive side. I think that if anyone has any questions about how he can develop quarterbacks, they can just look at the offenses he's had over the years. And I think that, everyone has places where they may not have success or they don't do a great job with one particular person. But I think more times than not, I think he does a really good job, with his quarterbacks and with his offense.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan, people forget he was much younger in the early days of the Texans, and Matt Schaub was not an elite quarterback, and he made Matt Schaub look really good.
Yeah.
When he was with the Cleveland Browns, like he made Hoyer look really good. That year, the Browns at one point were like fighting for a playoff spot, and then in the final 3 games of the year, they lost. They finished up 7-9, and which was probably one of the best seasons they had in a long time during that point.
Right.
And then he goes to Atlanta, and Matt Ryan was an established quarterback, and Matt Ryan became an MVP. So Kyle Shanahan knows how to develop quarterbacks, and I think it's just that his system is a little bit complex. That's why, in my opinion, and I get heat all the time. If that offense takes like even LaFleur, who does the same thing with Aaron Rodgers, an MVP quarterback, took him 1 year, and then the following year he had the best stats in his career. So
yeah, no, I think he does a really good job on it. I don't think that's his problem.
Yeah. All right, now we're gonna come to the final segment of the show. This is probably, I think, my favorite. Maybe some in the chat, to some of the viewers, it's a 2-minute drill. So this is the 2-minute drill. Our guest answers very tough. I am just joking. Some fun questions. All right. So you, of course, spent time here, with the 49ers. So, and of course, you saw a lot of the 49er players, during your time here. But I want to ask you right now, Who is a 49er player right now that you like to watch right now?
A guy that I like to watch got to be George Kittle.
George Kittle. Yeah. I like George Kittle. The dude is a funny dude. Always.
He's awesome. He's always been great. I love being there with him and just watching him. He plays the game the right way, so I really enjoy watching him.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next question is like, I know you spent time, here. You probably know all the legends of the 49ers, but is there a player of the 49ers like who doesn't play with the team organization no more that you really appreciate?
Yeah, I said the guy that I was really excited about meeting for the first time was Patrick Willis. I think because I knew who he was growing up. Like when I was in high school, he was a really good young player. And so I think meeting him was really awesome for me, and being able to be around him that first year, because that was his last year playing in the NFL before he retired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. The next question is, which is, kind of tricky because you actually played football in college, but, so most of the people I've had on, have never, been a professional athlete. They're mostly podcasters and small YouTubers. But what positions did you play when you were in college?
So I went into college as a quarterback. So I played quarterback for 2 years. And then going into my redshirt sophomore year, I switched positions and played safety. So I played safety for 3 years. So I played quarterback for 2 and safety for 3.
Cool. All right. So that is the first portion of our question segment. Now we got even some harder questions. Again, I am just joking. Fun, interactive questions. Let's get to know our guest. So, favorite food. You must have a favorite food that you really love to eat.
It's got to be wings. I love wings. Any way I can get them.
Wings? What style?
Buffalo, lemon pepper, barbecue, fried, grilled. However you make them, I'll eat them.
Cool. Let's see. I'm not sure if you want to answer this question, but 49 Joe Empire says, question, how much are scouts on the road, and is it good pay?
I think I'll answer the second part first. I think the pay is depends on who you ask, would be the answer I give you. But no, I think that for us, we're on the road anywhere from 3 to 7 days a week. It just depends on the week. Sometimes sometimes there are weeks where you're gone for a week, sometimes 10 days, sometimes up to 2 weeks, but usually it's 3, 4, 5 days a week on a normal weekend. We catch a game on Saturday. I try to catch games closer to home so I don't have to stay out as long, but it just depends on how you can make your schedule to where you're out for 2 weeks, or you can make it to where you do a bunch of short trips and you get more time at home with your family if you have that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you have time, but you must have some downtime. Do you have any entertainment, TV shows, movies? Is there any type of movies that really intrigue you? Type of genre movies? Same thing with TV shows. Are you a entertainment, type of person?
I've gotten into TV shows more. I have a few classic TV shows I love. Like I'll rewatch The Wire all the time. It's just kind of something I put on in the background while I either watch film or when I want to just have some downtime. I'll do that. But definitely Netflix, and definitely play some video games. Definitely still on the. I've been playing baseball lately. That's like my the sport I wish I played. So I use that now. I play my MLB game. I got my own player, so I'm a pretty good shortstop.
Oh, cool. Speaking of The Wire, this is very off topic, but there is an episode, a scene where they talk about, like I don't watch the show, but I was watching a little documentary, something non-football related. I'm not going to bring it up, but basically it talks about, there's a certain situation of their lifestyle that if law enforcement was able to look at, what that show does in a different way, then they don't have to do what they have to do, So it's something that like off camera, type of conversation, but it's a type of moral dilemma where it comes to officers and the people who do the bad stuff. So just simplify it.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of shady stuff going on in that show. So it's just depending on it's definitely a lot of either way with a lot of that.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's go back to the questions. I'm not sure if you answered this, but do you have any hobbies?
I think cooking is definitely one of my hobbies. Cooking and music, I think, are the two things I like the most, even more so than TV shows or movies. I love to cook, and then I love music. That's honestly part of the reason why I don't mind. A lot of the schools I go visit will have to drive, and there's some drives are only 2 hours, some drives are up to 4 or 5 or 6 hours, and that's why they're probably the main reason why I don't mind being in the car because I love music. So I'll make a playlist and just ride out and I'll have a really good time.
And this is a really good, question. You just talked about it. You talked about music. What type of music do you like to listen to?
Oh man, that's such a hard. I mean, it just depends on the day. Sometimes it's I mean, a lot of obviously like current hip hop. I love '90s R&B music. 80s rock is one of the like, especially when I'm working out. I can go from, but anything from pop to '80s music to current rap. I mean, I listen to music so much. I think I have to do different genres so I don't get tired of anything. So I definitely I would like to say it's an eclectic mix of music.
Yeah, for me, I'm the same way. Like I don't just choose one type of genre. I listen to rap, hip hop, R&B, popular music, even classical music, things like that. Rock music, because I do think that like most people, just they choose just one genre, but there's also great other music as well that is not the traditional like one type of genre. Because at the end of the day, I think music is universal. It doesn't really matter what you like. So I do agree with that. Good music is just good music in general.
Right. No, I agree with that for sure.
All right. So I think we have another question from the same guy. I have another question. Do you choose what school you get to scout and what positions you scout?
No, so we use a scouting service through the NFL, and through that service, they populate kind of all the prospects that are the guys that are prospects for the NFL draft. They give us kind of that list of players, and they give me so as long as it's a player in a state that I'm responsible for, and they're an NFL prospect, I have to evaluate them. So it can be punters, quarterbacks, defensive linemen, all positions, as long as they're 3 years removed from high school, draft eligible, and they're at a school in my area, I'm kind of responsible for those guys.
All right. So let's finish up with the bonus question. This is actually, your segment. Basically, plug in any type of social media. I'm not sure if you have a YouTube, but where can people find you so people can follow you? Because I think some of the viewers will probably want to follow this guy now because, like, oh, this guy had some really great answers. And so let them know one more time who you are, what you do, if you have any social media where people can find you and follow you.
Let me see. You caught me off guard. I don't even remember my name on Twitter. Hold on.
Okay. And take
But
your
no,
time.
no, you're good. I'm AJ Highsmith, and you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram name is just my last name, Highsmith, HIGHSMITH .jpeg, like the file. I thought that was clever when I made it. I don't know if I like it anymore, but it made sense when I did it. And then my Twitter is Highsmith _ II, like the Roman numeral, and then the number 30.
Cool. Yeah, so I want to remind everybody, follow this guy, AJ Highsmith. This guy spent time with the 49ers as a scout. Now he's with the Bills, and he does the hard work for all of us, finding the next star mostly for his team now, but give these scouts, a lot of respect. And that's one of the reasons why, I invited you on, because I want fans to know the tough things that most fans don't get to see. Of course, head coaches, people need to know what they do, general managers, and their staff, what the players have to do in the day in, day out during the entire year, and college prospects, what they have to do, and especially what you guys have to do. So I want to always give you guys the credit you guys deserve, because I think, I'm starting to open up eyes to a lot of people. Wow, football is not as easy as we think by just watching the TV. So thanks very much for doing what you do.
No problem, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's definitely a lot that goes into it, but like anything you do, it's fun. So it's still football, so it's a lot of fun. It doesn't always feel like work, so I enjoy it. But thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so before we all go, I want to thank everybody in the chat, those who, have, of course, been supporting this channel. And I told you, I'm doing big things, bringing in great guests, great guests. And this guy has been a really great guest. We've had Mike Schumann. We had the ladies of the football. You know, we're bringing in the ladies as well. We cannot forget about them. But with that said, we are about to sign out. But before we go, I'm John Jay. This guy over here is AJ Highsmith. He's a scout. Check him out on his Twitters and Instagram account. And with that said, we will see you guys next time. You guys have a good rest of your day.